Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we're going to be talking about a topic that I guess you could say is a tangent or a segue off of one of my previous videos I did a couple of videos ago, I guess you could say, and that is what makes a good player. Now, I've been linked to videos recently about, from subscribers and friends about, after I did the pro video, that some people have actually classify players in different categories: an average player, a good player, a great player, etc. But their qualifications seem a little bit off to me. You know, they've had a top of the YCS, we'll get in the top 32 to be a good player. You know, they vary. And it got me thinking, before I made this video, I should mention that different players are going to have different ideas of what makes a good player. We're just talking about good players. I mean, there's average players, there's bad players, there's good players, there's great players, etc. But what just makes a good, well-rounded player? Keep that in mind, a well-rounded player that's good at multiple different things in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, many people's qualifications for a good Yu-Gi-Oh! Player is you've had a top at, major events multiple times, like YCSs, regionals, etc. My answer to that is the following statement. Pretty much, I guess you could say. I feel that's not always true. Why? That shouldn't be just the classification, right off the bat for being a good player. Why is that? There are many good players I personally know and have met that I can say you're a good player, you play solid decks and whatnot, but even though they haven't topped, at events, major events, mind you, that doesn't make them any less of a good player. Why? A lot of those players don't want to invest the money into the best decks, the top tier decks. Now granted, you can top with rogue decks. That's not a problem. It's possible, especially at the regional level, to do this. But saying that, if you want to have a better chance, so to speak, at topping at these major events, you usually have to pick up expensive decks, or Burning Abyss, Necros, the main meta decks. What do all these decks have in common? They're pretty expensive for the most part, to some degree. I mean, granted, I love, playing a semi-competitive deck, I guess you could say, that can compete against the meta, like your Senjus, Heroes, etc. There's no problem with that, and you have the good chance of topping, but if you really want to make it to the top tables, you usually have to play expensive decks, or the main meta. Not every player wants to do that. Not every player wants to drop, $130 on Bryonax when they came out of freaking hit Tribe Forces, whatever that was. I can't remember off the top of my head, even though it was only a couple months ago. Getting senile in my old age, I guess you could say. But back on topic. People don't want to drop the money on that. I don't want to have to drop the money on just one $130 cardboard thing and then turn around a freaking couple of weeks later and it's down to $50 because it got hit on the ban list, and be out $50, $60, $70 and be like, well, I could have spent that money building a fun wonky deck just for fun, or waited for the reprint or whatever. And that's something I feel that many Yu-Gi-Oh! Players talking to feel we have in common. We don't want to drop the money on these expensive decks because it's not worth it. We'd rather play just our good decks, wait for reprints, wait for stuff to get cheap, and then pick it up, even if it's like $6, $7, $10. Some people that's expensive, but I can deal with that instead of paying $150 for a single card. Heck yeah. Saying that, in conclusion, that's one of the reasons why I don't feel it's always true just to say that if you haven't topped a major event, that automatically cuts you out of being a good player. I definitely think that's a no-no, because I think it's much more than that, than you just topping at an event. And like I said, I've seen people have a tier list of what makes a good player, what makes a great player, etc., etc. I don't think that's a classification because of what I stated. Granted, if you've topped at major events, great for you, good for you. That, I think, just makes you just that much better of a player. But I don't think that's the be-all, end-all qualification is what I'm trying to say. I feel it's more diverse than that. I think it means that you're well-rounded. You have a vast knowledge of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, of its rulings, of its plays, of the card pool, things of that nature. I feel that's another good classification, because if you're very knowledgeable at the game, you're already a good player. Why? Because your knowledge is key to winning in Yu-Gi-Oh! The more you know about your opponent's deck or how that deck plays, the more you know about your own deck, the more you know about card rulings and interactions, the more likely chance you are going to win more events. It's a direct correlation to being a good player. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But talking about this, I want to talk more in depth about this topic later on, about why knowledge is so important and it's so key to being a good player, or just why it's so important in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And why some people just like throw it under the rug because it is a card game, I guess you could say. Also, some other things I think that make a good player are the fact that you can play a good duel. What do I mean by this? You can just play a good duel. I know that's very vague in what I'm trying to say. So let me give you an example. So visualize in your head now that you're playing against an opponent. Okay? You playing your deck, he's playing his deck. You can notice their tells. What do I mean by a tell? His facial expressions, or he keeps touching that back row card over and over, or he keeps touching that card in his hand. And if you know their deck, you pretty much can say, well, I can deduce from what you're doing that that is a good card, I need an MST, or that is a card that I think I need to, watch out for in your hand because you keep going to it. It could be an effect veil or a max C or whatever, or a gores or a hand trap. You can deduce from these things. You can also, you have good playing style. You can come out on a good basis. You can most of the time win with bad hands, good hands. Doesn't matter. You can consistently win. Get yourself out of sticky situations by thinking a turn ahead of your opponent. You know what your opponent's thinking, so you think ahead of them. You play with their mind. The other game that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Is pretty much what I'm saying. You're able to play that game with your opponent. Another thing, I think, the third qualification for being a good, rounded, good player is deck building. Now, I'm going to say this because this is true, and I've heard people before talk about this, is there is different classifications for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. Some are good deck builders, okay? Some are very good deck builders at what they do, and they're very good at their craft. Some are just good Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. They're good duelists. And what I mean by that is they can play any deck very well, but it has to be well built. They're not good deck building. They don't know the ins and outs of decks, their interactions. To some extent, they don't have a vast knowledge of the card pool to use wonky cards like Mind Over Matter and Psychics, where cards, a deck that revolves around a very important psychic monster. They don't have this knowledge, so to speak, I guess you could say. And saying that, they're just good duelists. They're able to duel with different variations of decks. And then there's some players that are very good deck builders, like I stated before. They have, they have vast knowledge, etc. But they're not the best duelists. It just happens. I've seen it many times. And then once in the blue moon, you do find these players that are good deck builders and good duelers. And sometimes, a good amount of the time, I would guess you could say, correlates them to being a very above average or amazing player, or an iconic, or become a great player in the game, because their creativity, their deck building skills, their card pool knowledge, things of this nature. And they're a combination of both. But I find that a good majority of the player base is a good duelist who can net deck and use that deck to win, or a player that's a good deck builder but not good at dueling in general. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. And if you've played this game for a long time, you've probably seen differences. Then I feel like another core thing, talking about being a good duelist, is also being a good deck builder. I've always kind of touched on what those things are. Vast knowledge of the card pool. You can pretty much think, okay, if I'm playing Psychics, here are some underrated cards for Psychics. Here are some, cards to play. This is a good solid deck. All of these cards flow together. They work together. There's no quirkiness. It's consistent at what it does, etc. You have vast card, how all the cards interact. You're very knowledgeable about card interaction, different plays. You can think creatively, like summon a monk, make Armageddon Egg, make Lavalva Chain. Sad face, miss you Lavalva Chain. But you get what I'm trying to say. You can be creative with your deck building skills and make a good solid deck at the end of the day. Or a versatile deck. Now, saying all these things together, okay? I feel that that's the qualifications for a good player. That's my qualifications. Am I a good player? Am I a great player? I think I'm a good player. I don't think I'm an amazing, drop-dead gorgeous player. I mean, I make mistakes. When I duel, I sometimes make mistakes where I make misplays. Sometimes it's just fatigue. I know, I'm human, I'm only human. But I feel like I'm an okay player, I'm a good player. You know, my friends can tell me otherwise, I guess you could say. But saying that, that's what I think makes the qualifications for a good player. You don't have to always top an event to be a good player, I feel like. I feel that the more knowledge you have, and that's really key, the knowledge, that makes a good player. Knowledge is key to being a good player, in direct correlation, like I said before. And I feel like at the end of the day, me personally, I don't care if I'm known as a great player. I don't care if I'm known as an iconic player or an iconic person in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the end of the day, the only thing I want to be known as is a good pat on the back saying, hey, you're a good player, pretty much, Kevin. You're a good player, Kevin, which is my name, by the way. You're a good player. That's all I want to hear. That's what anybody, I think, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Wants to be heard. They don't want to be called a scrub, an average player, an okay player. I'm a good player. That's what they want to hear. That's what they want to say. That's what they want to hear from other players. I guess you could say. That's what I found through my experience, what many players feel like. They just want to be known as a good player. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. A good player. But till next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and tell me down below, guys, what do you think are the qualifications for being a good player? Like I said, and if I didn't mention already, we can give titles to people like pro player, iconic player, whatever, but I think there's many players out there that are good players. I don't think it's just a title or a label you can put on a player. It's, you can play over that player's like, hey, you're a good player. It's a label, but it's a label that you can, it's not tangible, but there's ways to measure it. It's not just money based to being a pro player. If you get what I'm trying to say. I know I'm saying it in a weird manner, but I do apologize. A little bit tired. But till next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and tell me, guys, what you think down below makes a good Yu-Gi-Oh player, a well-rounded player. Till next time, guys, take care, everybody. Seto Kai by Mafia. Until next time, guys, and good luck dueling to all of you. Take care, everybody.